Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heartland Mamas. I'm Murray Briel.
And I'm Heidi Henry. And today we have to discuss, Murray, what's going on in Iran and Iraq, because it's serious, serious times over there. And we have stepped in it for so long over there that...
And whatever hope we had of working toward a common goal has been destroyed by Trump's utter lack of understanding of the history and the region and what happens. And that's what we're going to unpack for you today, guys.
It's a serious subject, and people are dying and have been dying over there for years. We made, Murray, and I'm just going to say this up front, we made a huge mistake invading Iraq under false pretenses. It doesn't diminish how I feel about our armed services and our soldiers.
Not at all.
But the fact that we're still fighting a war that we shouldn't have been in the first place, destabilizing a region with terrible stability issues, and never addressing the fact that that Saudi Arabia was responsible for 9/11.
Now, granted, Saddam Hussein was not a good guy.
He wasn't a good guy,
and he was a fascist.
Yep.
But we had no business doing that under false pretenses.
Our regime change philosophy over there has caused issues that may never be resolved in my lifetime. By taking out Saddam Hussein and taking out Muammar Gaddafi, you have made this area even more brutal and unsafe for the rest of the world.
And here's where we come into what's going on. So the country of Iraq, real brief history, is based, 1/3 of the country is Shia, which is a sect of the Muslim religion. 2/3 of the country are Sunni. The Sunnis feel they need a larger representation in government because the religions are two very different religions. It's sort of like evangelical Christians
and Roman Catholics.
I was going Unitarians, way on the other side of everything is okay, God loves you no matter what crap.
You have under the Shia, you have Shia law, which we what did you just say?
Nothing.
Okay. Under the Shia, we have the Shia law, which is very much like our evangelicals, where women have a certain place and they have no voice and they have no rights. And Saudi Arabia is like that too. This is their philosophy, that it's a male patriarchal society.
So does Iran. So here's where our conflict comes into play. That small group of Iraqi citizens, or that not small, 30% is pretty good, that percentage aligns far more with the Iranian ideology, which is the Shia ideology and the more extreme Islamic views.
Right.
So those that live there, the majority of them, kind of like the majority of Americans, aren't real happy with Trump, but this tiny minority of 30%, 35%
are yelling and screaming, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Thing in the world.
I know.
Do you see any parallels here, folks?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Despots love one another.
Sans the parallels. So there has been a lot of unrest and protest. There is also, while the unrest and protest is going on, there are Islamic-backed militia groups, Iranian Islamic-backed militia groups pushing into Iraq and
pushing into regime change.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. So now they had an attack. It killed an American contractor last week. America bombed several of their militia camps, killing what I believe is reported to be 24.
We have to stop trying to bomb people back to the Stone Age. I'm so sick of that philosophy.
And Heidi brings up a perfect point. I wanna talk about this, so let's pause in our understanding of what happened. Donald Trump at this point, by pulling out of the Iranian deal, continued to destabilize. The Iranian nuclear deal,
which was working,
continued to destabilize the region even farther. So we had this attack that killed an American contractor, and instead of reaching out to the Iraqi government, instead of coming up with a diplomatic solution that would have allowed both countries to save face, his act of might and posturing caused the attack on the embassy. Well, and so the reason that the militia groups attacked the embassy and it was under siege for over 20 hours is because, and there's a ton of damage done to the embassy now, is the reason is because it's a way to show those Shia in Iraq and the world that the United States is not the power that it thinks it is, that it's not this. So it played right into the hands of the Iranians. It played into the
Exactly.
hands of the IRCG.
What is the IRCG? Because we know them by their other name, which is
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard.
remember
Corps.
when we remember
Back to
when we
1979.
well no, but remember when we invaded what was the thing in Kuwait? Desert Shield. And we kept talking about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and we had to watch out for them, and they turned out to be really just black marketers. You know, they were like in the old Soviet Union, the old USSR, the guys that have their fingers in all the pie and do all the trading of all the vile stuff, anything from Levi's to uranium. You know, that's them. And now they're at their zenith right now because the black market is exploding there.
The black market. So, when Trump took office, now that we've gone through a little bit of our history, we can talk about when he came into power. He wanted to undo everything that Obama did, regardless of what the
If it was good or
repercussions
bad.
were, regardless of what his security experts said. His
Right.
State Department, we've seen how much he respects his State Department, dedicated
all.
diplomatic professionals.
Not at all.
So he felt that this show of power, this massive push of power, would cause Iran to back down by pulling out of the deal and give us everything that we wanted.
Have we learned nothing from the war? When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We have to start remembering to pull back our hammer and send out our diplomats and try to mend fences.
Which, that's where we become frenemies. So
Yeah. I'd rather have a frenemy
Iran
than...
and Iraq have two battling religious forces going on. But we
Yes.
were able to, as Americans, after we screwed it all up in 2003, we were able to work together to fight ISIS, to combat the
rise of caliphates,
the rise of California,
which have risen all over the place. We've seen a rise in Hezbollah, and Hezbollah started out in Lebanon in 1979 after the Arab Revolution, and you've heard the name Hezbollah forever. And Hezbollah is a militant Lebanese-based Shia Muslim faction, and they are a proxy for Iran in the ongoing Iran-Israeli conflict, which has never been resolved and will never be resolved until we work out the Palestinian state, I don't think, in Israel. So we need a two-state system there, and we need to get that done right away. A lot of our problems over there come back to the fact of what happened after World War II to the state of Palestine, in turning it into Israel. And until we resolve that, the conflict was going on for millennia before.
I have to say, I think that even more, yes, I know that there's definitely conflict and tension in the two-state solution
and
but
Trump just has been winding it up lately. I mean, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. I mean, all he's doing is cranking up the crazies. That's all he's doing. And I told you the other day, when we did our wrap-up of 2019, I said, I'm so grateful we're not in a atomic war.
And then I believe it was that day that, we all started.
Then we have, North Korea and Iran are just losing it right now, and they are nuclear powers, and we need to deal with that.
In the Iranian government, in support of the Iranian government, I will say that I believe that the arms deal was working, that we'd seen a de-escalation of conflict.
Oh my gosh.
We had seen cooperation between
yes.
multiple countries in defeating terrorist organizations.
It was working.
And you have to remember, it's not just defeating terrorist organizations, going in and getting Osama bin Laden or whomever the head is.
Yeah.
It's a large part in stabilizing the government and giving people hope so they aren't drawn to,
extremism.
So they can't be pulled in by the propaganda. If I'm hungry, if I'm cold, if I am being bombed all the time, my kids can't go to school.
If I'm oppressed,
I'm going to rise up, regardless of who tells me I can. As long as someone gives me an avenue and a voice, they're going, especially the most vulnerable, are going to join up, which increases the hatred for the
Right.
Western world.
And why we see the rise of ISIS.
And we're seeing the rise of ISIS
again,
where we had done so good by cooperating and working together. So this is the frustration. And the Iranian government, for all of its faults, I really do feel was working toward a cooperative effort.
They were working in good faith.
Yeah. And
for them.
So then what we did was we pulled out. We said, well, first we said we're going to sanction you. We're going to take... And then the Trump administration...
Tweety, tweet, tweet.
Had actually worked on getting around those sanctions. And that created the rise of the black market. There was already a black market in Iran. But, as we talked about, the IRGC...
Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps... The black marketeers from Clearback and Desert Shield, well, they're in business big time. And he who has the money and has the strength and has the weapons that aren't regulated by anything, they're running the show right now. And they're running it in Iraq and Iran.
So when you take away an even playing field, or at least a more level playing field, those with nefarious intents, such as these guys, are able to gain more control, to build their base of resistance, to grow their opposition to the Western world.
When you remove diplomacy, and Trump has removed diplomacy
so
all
this
over
is
the world.
So another consequence, you brought up the black market, which was great, and another consequence of this is the fact that Iran is now, in the last few months, has started their nuclear program up,
escalated,
because they have no diplomatic road to fixing this
with the United States at all.
Okay, so I'm kind of thinking family, right?
Yeah.
We talk about family a lot and how there's connections,
right?
So when you have a group and you're a family, the two different sides will go at each other. Brothers will fight, brothers and sisters will fight, sisters and brothers will fight, and everyone goes at it. And they can say horrible things, and they can smack each other with a Wii controller remote. Not that that's ever happened in my house.
They can threaten to shoot you in the face.
They can threaten to shoot you in the face.
That would be my brother.
They can chase you around the house with a knife.
Ooh.
But at the end of the day, some third party comes in and cools the situation down.
Yes.
And whether it's 2 months or 6 months or a year, 95% of the time, those two siblings are fine or back in the same room and okay with each other.
Yeah.
And that wasn't because one threatened to shoot the other in the face and the other got a gun. That is because some rational calmness descended and realized that fighting over the last pickle is not worth losing.
A mama stepped in.
A mama stepped in. Exactly. A mama stepped in right there and said, get over your crap. We're done.
Yeah.
So that's where our diplomatic opportunities are. It's the same thing when we had Khashoggi was killed.
Yes.
Instead of having this reaction the way he did to the American contractor, he talked to the Saudi government and the prince and the king, and they came up with a way to punish some people but not put blame. He could have done the same thing in that situation, saving everyone face, and we wouldn't have had an embassy attack. But he didn't.
I'm sorry. We're going to go into a whole thing on how the Saudis get away with everything, and we never hold them accountable until after we speak to their king or prince or whoever else we need to clear our diplomacy through. And I'm getting real tired of that, Murray. Real tired of it.
Oh,
I have tons of friends who are Saudis that are they're over it too. They love their country or the country that their families came from, but they're like, we just can't even explain what's going on up there, but we don't dare speak out about it because we'll be dead, and that's the problem with us trying to change these regimes and change them to try to be more Western thinking. We can't and we shouldn't. We should let them do their thing because that's what they do best. But at the same time, we can't keep going in and, pardon me, fucking it up all the time. Because that's what we do. That's what we do best. So now
diplomacy is a way.
Yep.
And if we think that a show of might, if you didn't get my kid example, your sibling example, if you think that a show of might is always the way to go, I will say that 9 out of 10 times the bluff is just as important, and no one wants the actual armed conflict.
No.
Well, not no one, but
Trump does.
governments.
Yeah, my brother does.
Government, responsible, logical, sane governments that deal in reality and world impressions want to come out of this saving face.
Right. They want a peaceful
And Trump
solution.
doesn't understand that.
Yeah. He doesn't understand that he's so more interested in himself. He's the ultimate narcissist. So the ultimate hammer. I have to be the biggest hammer, and I have to hit the hardest
Is
blow.
that because he has such a small mushroom? I don't know. Just
don't
ask
know.
him. Ask him for a friend.
I'm saying that it's all about the penis at this point. That is the issue.
It's okay.
So-
All right, straight up. Let's get real here. And if we were monetized, we would definitely be demonetized right now. Stop having pissing contests.
Yeah.
Guys, your dicks, I'll do the same thing.
And when you
Doesn't matter how big they are or how far you can piss.
after 50,
Stop.
you're going to get prostate cancer, prostate issues. 70% of you will, and you won't be able to piss at all. So stop it.
And women, we are fighting every day to retain rights, to give rights to women across the world, to keep our rights here in the supposedly the most free country in the world. And we have our own pissing contests.
We do.
Stop.
Stop it.
We don't need to do that. Be who we are, and we will be so much more successful. We're not guys. We can disagree.
Yeah.
We're going on Ben Joravsky on Friday, if you're listening to this before Friday,
And we've been
December
trying
3rd,
not to talk
or
about
January 3rd.
our topic, which is Bernie Sanders,
Right.
because we
but
want to be authentic.
one of the things I think that Ben really respects about us
Yeah.
is that we can have discussions, 3 women
Yeah.
in the studio often, and we have different opinions, and it can get somewhat heated. Yet at the end, it's a hug and it's a hey, you gave me something to think about.
If we're all on the same page, we just are maybe at different places on the page. And I think that is the reality of the world, is that nobody wants armed nuclear escalation except for maybe Kim Jong-un.
And weapons manufacturers.
Yeah, because they make money. The war machine is real, and people dying is profit for them. I just heard a story today, and please check this out. In Kansas, they're building survival bunkers for the wealthy. Kansas is away from all of the
Important.
well, it's away from global change. They will be very low impact in Kansas. So they have bought these bunker condominiums so that these wealthy people can live for years after they've blown us all up or drowned us in climate change. And
That is just
well, I'm just
awesome.
thinking, if you want to go somewhere, Kansas, really, I've been there. It's beautiful, but it's Kansas, And I loved Kansas. I thought it was stunningly gorgeous, but there wasn't a lot of trees or green stuff. So
it's pretty brown.
it's very bright. It's kind of this amber waves of grain thing really kind of hit me there.
Yeah, and it's very flat.
Very flat. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful, but look that story up today.
It's like an
Survival condos in Kansas for not for you and me, not for me and Murray, but for people who are Trumpers.
Yeah.
Well, not all the Trumper supporters, but him and his ilk.
And that brings us to the personality. We talked and we went a little off track here with
Sorry.
the
Like that
with
never
the-
happened
the-
before.
The pissing contest, yeah, right. But it does. It goes to who is in charge, who is in control. If Trump understood, or like we said in the beginning, or listened to those things that were those experts, he would have understood the best solution for the situation at the time. Does that mean that you can't incrementally change that? But my mama always told me you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Was she talking to my mama? Because my mama had said the same thing.
She would say it all the time, and she was so right.
Yeah.
We've talked about semantics. The minute you remove the labels, the terms, the hot buttons, people dial back and are willing to listen. It's the same thing on a global scale.
Putting out your hand to shake another person's hand or hug them. So much better than pulling out a gun and offering
Shooting
to shoot
them
somebody
in
the
the
face. So, and that would be my younger brother. So we don't agree politically.
So as he emulates these dictators, these strong men, I've heard someone call it the New York gangsta mentality. As he
I call it the uneducated twerp mentality, but
dude, that's the correct description. But people have used that as a term to define him. This posturing and this strong man shtick that he's doing is one, outdated, two, extraordinarily dangerous for us. Remember, a big part of this whole blow up right now comes from the fact that he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal.
Bringing
he
it full
did
circle
this,
here.
and now he has lost exponentially because they can say, look, we're standing up. This was the best propaganda. They even came back when their leader called them back. It wasn't to really get in. It was propaganda. We're standing up to the Americans that you can't trust. You need to join us. And this is where we come into having problems, and we'll have another 9/11.
We haven't had chanting Iraq and Iran going death to America for a lot of years, but now it's back, and Hezbollah is feeding this.
Well, because, because the Islamic militant groups, backed by the Iranian government, are pushing this.
Yes.
And it's
the
going
Hezbollah
global.
proxy.
So when you're making your votes, when you're thinking about things, I'm urging you to think in global terms.
Choose a Picard over a Kirk. It's a Star Trek reference.
Oh, I know that. Yes. Choose a Picard over Kirk. Mm-hmm. Because while you may like the swagger of the Kirk,
we all love the Kirk
is bad. The Picard is good.
And the Janeway is the best.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Why is that?
Because she's a mama. She's a mama.
Yeah. But our point is, my point is really, I attack the mic, really think about that when you go to the polls, when you decide who to help. There are better ways to approach things than might and power. And I'd like you to really consider that.
Yes, I drink. Any of you who are watching this or watching me spill all over myself as I drink my beverage today.
Hey, I do it all the time.
Well, here's the issue. When we go back to thinking about one of our regime changes over there, which was the Shah of Iran, which was deposed because he was very Sunni based, and he wanted to have, women had a lot of equality in Iran and Iraq. And until we tried to go in and regime change in Iraq, women had a lot of freedom.
They did. They really did.
And now it's becoming more
It was one of the most progressive Islamic countries.
Now they're becoming more like Saudi Arabia, where women are completely covered, where they can't be educated, where they can't drive. And if you do those things, for just those simple things, showing your face, you can be murdered. We have to understand that this is kind of the modern evangelical philosophy too, that women should be seen and not heard. And that places
because we're not sentient beings that have control over ourselves.
It places our societies in a very dangerous place when you can't have the voice of moderation. Women are often subjected like that because we are always the voice of moderation, and we are always the voices of peace. There are certainly a lot of men in that same position, but historically in that region, it's the women that have brokered the peace. In our country, a lot of the peaceful things that have happened have come from women's voices.
Or Picards.
Or Janeways. So I want you to think about that and observe the news. Look at the news from the 70s or even the 80s. In the places of women in the society in the Middle East, and then what has happened to them over time, and a lot of it with our intervention. So I'm saying that our intervention is not a pure intervention, that we still have war in our hearts, and that we need to release that, because we can't move forward as a great society until we come to terms with the fact that we need equality, we need peace, and we need diplomacy.
Absolutely. I could not agree more.
So
thanks for tuning in. We hope we sort of helped enlighten what the heck is going on.
and
in
sorry
the
for our
embassy
segues today.
But I think that it worked out just fine.
Fine, yeah.
So if you're listening to our show before December or
3rd.
January 5th, our
January
January 6th
3rd.
episode.
Wait, January 3rd,
3rd
we're
is
going
we're
to
on
be
Ben
Ben
Jarofsky.
Jarofsky Show. Tune in, Benny J Show on Twitter. It'll be awesome. Hit the live feed. Ask us some questions.
Absolutely. And then we need your help. We need you to write in your questions about marijuana, about cannabis. We will be doing a show. Nikki Serbin, the Canna Consultant, and I will be answering your questions about anything you want to know about cannabis.
Yep.
So please send your questions in so we know what to talk about.
Now, we addressed a lot of the law in a previous show called The Weed Show. Now we're going to talk about different strains and how you can use it and that sort of thing.
Different ways to consume cannabis. There are so many options. It's overwhelming, which is why to keep it to a half hour, we need to know what you want to know.
Yeah, we need to know what you need to know. I'm going to be learning along with you because I'm not a cannabis user. I have no problem with anybody and everybody using it.
And shout out to our Lieutenant Governor,
Juliana
Stratton, for being one of the first people to make a purchase at a
I'm just wondering, did she stay up all night because people were lined up at 3 o'clock?
I think she did, or she had an aide stand in line, and she was able to show up. You know,
but I'm so grateful that she's putting such a public face on this.
I am
because
too.
We need to release the stigma. When I read the articles from, in the paper, the commentary, and people are just like, oh, well.
People are shocked that there were every ethnicity, every age group,
every socio.
In fact, in Joliet,
class.
I live very close to one of the new recreational dispensaries that's opened. There was a line from well before it started all the way through until they closed. They were shuttling people from a parking lot to the dispensary, and there were some. It was great. They had food trucks set up, and one of the things, they had 2 police officers to make sure everything went okay. A lot of dispensaries do that when they start, and one of the officers said, I have no idea why the heck we didn't do this first. There's nothing bad about cannabis.
Well, even in Little Ottawa and Little Morris, Illinois, they had hundreds of people in line. Hundreds.
In North Aurora, they had to cut off the line.
Because they were running out of stuff?
No. They wouldn't. The line was so long, they wouldn't be able to serve everyone before they closed at 4.
Wow.
So they had to cut off the line.
As an Illinois person, even though I'm not an imbiber, I'm like, bring on the tax revenue. And release the stigma.
I said that to my husband. I said yesterday, J.B. Pritzker had to be just laying in bed going ka-ching, 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 ka-ching.
Wait, Illinois needs the revenue. We need to release the people who have suffered the most under the war on drugs. And thanks be to God that we're expunging records and letting people have their lives back. I mean, long time coming. And why we didn't do this sooner will always be our question.
So let us know your questions, your thoughts.
I have a lot of
comments. And we will rock out on Friday with Ben Jarofsky, Benny J Show.
Yeah.
And on Sunday with the cannabis consultant, Miss Nikki Serbin.
It'll be released Monday morning at 10 a.m. So tune in. We will be doing it as a premiere.
And by then, you will probably be able to purchase some cannabis again because hopefully the lines will be shorter.
Well, and a big part of the problem is that we
have so few dispensaries.
We have so few dispensaries, but we have so few growers. That's, it's so exponentially expensive to go through the process, and we're just not growing enough.
So welcome to 2020. If you like us, please subscribe, share, like. Keep an eye on our website. There's going to be some Heartland Mamas merch coming that you're going to want to have.
It's going to be great.
It is awesome.
Maybe it'll be a drink thing that I can't spill on myself.
So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Please subscribe, like, share.
Take care.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.